Part 58. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 571. More than half a month later. The war in the New World is still going on. The battles between the Whitebeard pirates and the Warhammer pirates in various sea areas resulted in victories and defeats. The guy from Newgate still didn't show up. Orgrim is also sitting in Avalon in the Sea of Eternal Night. The navy seemed to have stopped. The most intense battle took place in the waters of Totland. After Kaido tore through the defense of the Big Mom pirates. Just like a reckless man, he went straight in alone. The target is directed at Cake Island. At this time on Totland Cake Island. In Charlotte Lingling's castle, red-haired Shanks is meeting Charlotte Lingling. The gloomy eyes were fixed on Shanks's eyes, while Shanks looked very calm and had no trace of ghosts in his heart. He was also looking at Charlotte Lingling. After a long time, Charlotte Lingling said, "I hope we can work together to kill that bastard Kaido." "Of course there is no problem," Shanks said with a smile. After a slight pause, Shanks continued, "Kaido made a big mistake this time, that is, he didn't know I was here at all. So, once he is defeated here, I will lead the red-haired pirates in pursuit. I hope that your Big Mom pirates can give us some support when the time comes." It sounded as if Shanks was going to seize Kaido's foundation after defeating Kaido here. Charlotte Lingling laughed and said very sincerely, "No problem, this is what happens between our alliances. The right thing to do, isn't it?" At this moment, Pero walked in from the door and said with a serious expression, "Mom, Sea Slug has monitored the movements of the beast pirates, and they are approaching Cake Island." After finishing speaking, Pero glanced at Shanks again. Upon hearing this, Charlotte Lingling stood up from her throne, walked down slowly, and said in a deep voice, "That bastard guy, since he really dares to come, let him have a taste of our power." At the same time, on the ship of the beast pirates, Kaido took off the wine bottle hanging from his waist, put it to his mouth, and took 2 sips. Quinn stood beside him. He opened his mouth and asked, "Boss Kaido, we should have been discovered, right?" "It was definitely discovered," Yin said without hesitation. Quinn glanced at Yin unhappily and said nothing. "On the contrary," Jack asked uneasily, "Boss Kaido, according to the information given by Lord Hammer, the red-haired Shanks should be at Cake Island too. We didn't bring many people this time, so our chances of winning are not good." At this time, Kaido just finished drinking the drink, then laughed and said, "Ha ha 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 ha, what are the chances of winning?" "Ah," Jack was a little confused. "As long as Orgrim can win, the benefits in the New World will be enough," Kaido said without hesitation. Yin also nodded and said, "Yes, as long as Lord Hammer can win, from now on, we will have the final say in the New World. So we are here this time just to make things difficult for that self-righteous idiot with red hair and fool Lingling, and to muddy the waters here. It would be best not to have a single winner. This is our purpose," Kaido said with a smile. After a slight pause, Kaido said expectantly, "Of course, more importantly, I must have a good time here." "Destroy the Cake Island directly," Quinn said with a cruel smile on his lips. "Ha ha ha ha, you are right, the Cake Island was destroyed, just like the Butter Island back then," Kaido said with a smile. As the words fell, his body suddenly expanded. After just a few breaths, he flew from the boat into the air. He had transformed into a domineering and majestic ferocious dragon. Kaido breathed. There was a smell of alcohol in him, and then, he looked at the Cake Island that had appeared on the sea level with an evil smile, and said evilly, "I'm going first, you guys follow me." Then, without giving Quinn and the others a chance to speak, Kaido swung his dragon tail, and the huge figure got into the clouds in the sky at an extremely fast speed. At this time, Charlotte Lingling had also walked out of the castle. As if they had a telepathic connection, she and Shanks looked up into the sky together. "Coming," Charlotte Lingling said with a hint of anger in her eyes. Shanks glanced at her, then curled his lips and put his hand on the famous sword griffin at his waist. The next second, Shank's feet suddenly with one exertion, the figure flew directly away from Charlotte Lingling. Then, the saber in his hand was unsheathed and slashed into the air. Then, in the clouds, a powerful force tore through the thick clouds collided with the slash. It was Kaido's hot breath. Yes, this guy always likes to say hello in this way. The slash and the hot breath collided together, causing waves in the air. There was a violent explosion. A powerful shock wave erupted in the sky above Cake Island, lifting the veil of gloomy clouds. At the same time, everyone on Cake Island looked up into the sky. Only a ferocious domineering figure was seen. The head of the dragon poked its head out from the clouds. Ha 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 ha, Lingling, long time no see, Kaido said with a smile. It's only been less than a year. Are you too forgetful? Charlotte Lingling said with anger in her eyes. Kaido did not answer, but looked at Shanks, who fell to the ground again and stood next to Charlotte Lingling, and said with a ferocious smile, it really makes me happy. Surprised, you actually joined forces with King Shichibukai. You are only allowed to ally with that bastard Orgrim, but you are not allowed to find some new helpers as well, Charlotte Lingling sneered. Ha 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 ha, just right. Let me test your strength. Kaido laughed loudly. After the words fell, he opened his mouth and spat out another stream of hot blood. Shanks had no intention of taking action this time, with a calm smile on his face and his hands folded in front of his chest, as if watching a show. Charlotte Lingling glared at Shanks fiercely, then took off the captain's hat on her head and shouted, Emperor's sword. Napoleon's captain's hat instantly turned into the Emperor's sword, and was caught in Charlotte Lingling's hand. Then, without saying a word, Charlotte Lingling raised her hand and slashed the sword into the air. At the same time, she roared Albaf's gun Waiguo. The powerful destructive power of the Wei Kingdom directly annihilated the heat breath and set off another explosion in the air. At the same time, the remaining power passed through the explosion and went straight to Kaido's dragon head. Kaido had a sinister smile on his lips, and his domineering dragon claws moved toward. With the next press, a claw suddenly grabbed the invisible aftermath of Waiguo, and then with a pinch, the aftermath was crushed. At the same time, Shanks also moved, with flip-flops under his feet. He exerted his strength and flew into the air. The griffin in his hand brought out a cold light. There was evil in his eyes, and he shouted in a low voice, Vulture Zhanlong. Kid, don't be so arrogant, Kaido said with a ferocious smile, opened his mouth and spit out another force. It was the breath of wind. At the same time, on Cake Island, Katakuri and Perospero were already some of the cotters of the Big Mom pirates. They were all standing at the port. They were not going to deal with Kaido, but the big cotters of the beast pirates. Katakuri and Perospero were both watching the battle in the air. Look! As Shanks slashed away Kaido's wind breath with a knife, his figure attacked Kaido's dragon body still hidden in the clouds. Katakuri suddenly turned his head and looked at Perospero. Rospero was shocked and secretly prepared. However, he saw Katakuri's eyes were a little complicated and whispered, Brother, this war is very dangerous. You must be careful and pay attention to safety. Perospero was stunned for a moment, his eyes became complicated, and he nodded. I understand, Katakuri, you too, please pay attention to safety. Katakuri nodded, but didn't think much. He turned to look at the sea and said softly, Here we come. At the same time, not far from the waters of Cake Island, a famous pirate group from the New World was sailing here. This ship is called the Queen of the Infinite Fire. Explosion will take your whole family to heaven. Yes, this is the Sphinx's ship. Mihawk was also on the ship at this time. He was sitting quietly under the mast on the deck, with the black knife yet on his back and across his legs. He had a wet towel in his hand and was wiping the knife. Sphinx, that bastard Loli, seemed to be chattering and unable to calm down, pacing back and forth in front of Mihawk. but her anxious posture did not affect Mihawk at all. Mihawk was still wiping his path very calmly. His eyes seemed a little ethereal. After the Sphinx noticed it, he couldn't help but ask, "What are you thinking about, Mihawk?" Mihawk's thoughts were pulled back by the Sphinx, and he looked up at the Sphinx. Then said, "I was thinking about Andre, was he lazy?" Sphinx said with great disdain, "With Stacy here, he can't be lazy. Don't worry, we are going to the Cake Island to fight soon. Can you focus on this, Miho?" Kay glanced at the Sphinx, and then said, "We are not going to fight. Our mission is to serve as the strength of the Alliance. After the Beast Pirates show signs of decline, we will support their retreat. Don't make a mistake, okay? Don't worry about these details. Are you still going to fight?" the Sphinx cursed. "It's still somewhat different," Mihawk said. "Tell me, why does Mr. Chewie want us to go to such trouble? Coordinate the retreat of the Beast Pirates. Why not join the battlefield as a support force and help Boss Kaido?" the Sphinx said with some displeasure. "If there is no red hair, this may be good, but this is not our core interest. After covering the retreat of the Beast's pirates, we can just watch the show and see how the red hair pirates will fight with the Big Mom pirates." "What kind?" Mihawk said still calmly. Then, he glanced at the Sphinx, grinned and said, "When the time comes, if there is a chance, we can take action again." Sphinx's eyes lit up, and then he asked with a guilty conscience, "How about this? Is this appropriate? Does this count as a violation of Master Chewie's order?" Mihawk looked like a gentleman on the surface and said very seriously, "How could it be? As long as we cover the Beast Pirates' retreat, our mission will be over. By then, it's reasonable to move freely, isn't it?" "Ha ha 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 ha, you are right. Totally reasonable," the Sphinx laughed and said. However, Mihawk still warned the Sphinx, "Katakuri has a deep hatred for you. When the time comes, you must be more careful." Sphinx confidently patted the two cannons hanging on his waist and laughed, "Don't worry, if that guy dares to come to me to cause trouble, I will shoot him in the head." Mihawk, he smiled, and before he could speak, the phone bug placed next to the mast rang. With quick hands and eyes, the Sphinx picked up the phone and asked, "Hello, hey. What's going on?" "Sphinx-sama, on Cake Island, the Beast's pirates are at war with the Big Mom pirates. Lord Kaido takes action," the boy on the other side of the phone reported. Sphinx's eyes lit up and he said excitedly, I know. After hanging up the phone, Sphinx rubbed his hands and said, "When should we take action?" "Wait a minute, don't worry, report the news first," Mihawk said calmly. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 572. It is still on the sea not too far away from Cake Island. An ordinary pirate ship, this ship carries the flag of the Big Mom pirates. Don't get me wrong, it's not fake. In fact, this ship does belong to the Big Mom pirates. It is one of the fleet forces controlled by Pero. Most of the people on this ship are experts from the Fur tribe. Duke Inuarashi is on this ship right now. Kaido, Duke Inuarashi had a trace of hatred in his eyes and whispered softly. He had received the message from Pero. On Cake Island, Kaido of the Beast Pirates has appeared. This reminded Duke Inuarashi of what happened many years ago. At that time, they were defeated in Wano country and Lord Kojiki Oden died. Kaido is the culprit of all this. He couldn't wait to rush to Cake Island right now and kill that bastard Kaido. But he knew he couldn't do it. Kaido's strength is one of the most powerful in the world, especially since almost no one can kill him. And, this time, he came with kindness. Pero gave the furry tribe a lot of help after the furry principality was destroyed by the Warhammer pirates. This time, he, Inuarashi, is here just to help Pero. At the same time, there is a more important reason. That is, he still needs to be useful and cannot just die. Back then, After the defeat of Wano country, they became the young master of their Kojiki family. Kojiki Momonosuke, along with Kitsune Kinemon and a group of retainers, disappeared after escaping. According to the agreement, they will go to Zuoa. This is what Duke Inarashi has been waiting for. Waiting for the heir of their Kojiki family to appear, and when the time comes, they will find a way to take back the country of Wano. Defeat Kaido. This time, Duke Inarashi came with some masters of the Fur tribe. Cat Viper is not here. It should be said that this guy has been crippled by Enel. Although he was not immersed in regret day and night as Enelu thought. But Cat Viper's strength is indeed useless. After that day's battle, Duke Inuarashi also reconciled with Nico Viper. After all, Cat Viper has already become like that. Inuarashi couldn't bear to vent his anger on him anymore. While he was away, all of Zuoao's affairs were left to Cat Viper to handle. After putting his thoughts away, Duke Inarashi turned around and walked into the cabin. Arriving at a door, Duke Inarashi reached out and knocked on the door. Then, a slightly gloomy voice came from inside and responded. Duke Inuarashi then opened the door and walked in. There are two people in the room. One was sitting on the sofa with a cigar between his teeth. The other one was sitting neatly on the other side of the sofa, making tea. Crocodile, Mr. Pero just sent news that the beast pirates have begun to attack Cake Island. Duke Inuarashi looked at the back of the figure sitting on the sofa and said softly. That's right, the man sitting on the sofa with a cigar in his mouth, wearing a black suit and a slicked back hair. It was the man who secretly entered the new era. The king of the world is Shishibukai-sand Crocodile. Listening to Duke Inarashi's words, Crocodile slowly exhaled a puff of smoke, with an evil smile on his lips, and said everything is planned. When will we go to war? Duke Inarashi asked in a deep voice. Crocodile glanced at him and said, Are you anxious? Duke Inuarashi was silent for a moment and did not speak. I've heard about you. It seems like you have a grudge against Kaido? Crocodile asked. Duke Inarashi frowned and said in a deep voice, This has nothing to do with you. Maybe, but don't forget, we are not here to cause trouble with Kaido this time, Crocodile said softly. Duke Inarashi finally nodded and said, I know. Just understand. Although we are on the Big Mom Pirates ship, we are not here to help Charlotte Lingling. Pero should make it clear to you. Crocodile sneered and said. Duke Inarashi did not answer. Crocodile did not pay attention and continued. Wait a minute, the hunter is always the last one to appear, red-haired, that guy thought he was a hunter, but he didn't know that he was also within my hunting range. Do you really think you can defeat Charlotte Lingling, defeat that red-haired guy? Duke Inuarashi couldn't help but ask. In his knowledge, Crocodile, it has been silent for many years. Are you really capable? Ha 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 ha, Crocodile couldn't help laughing. Then, he looked at Duke Inarashi and said, Do you know what I have been doing all these years? Duke Inarashi opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Everyone in the sea said that you, Crocodile, are dead and want to clear your identity as a pirate and go ashore to become a noble. How could I not know? But just when he was about to speak. But I don't know what to say. If Crocodile is really such a person, why would he come to the New World to go through this troubled water? Suddenly, Duke Inarashi realized that he knew nothing about Crocodile. Just do what you have to do. Pero asked you to cooperate with me. You don't need to worry about the extra things. Crocodile looked at Duke Inarashi, who had nothing to say, and smiled evilly. Duke Inarashi took a deep breath. If it weren't for his kindness, he wouldn't be able to say a word to the bastard Crocodile. In the end, Inuarashi nodded, turned and left, closed the door and left. After he left, Crocodile looked at the closed door and sneered. That's all. At this time, the man sitting on the sofa in front of him put a cup of hot tea on the table in front of Crocodile. This man was none other than Mr. 3 Galdino. He was also a little uneasy in his heart. Cake Island, Totland. He really doesn't want to come. But the problem is that all his big bosses are here. As the only cotter sent by Crocodile in the New World, he has to come even if he doesn't come. At this time, I heard that Kaido had already started fighting with Charlotte Lingling on Cake Island. There are some big shots like red hair in there. Galdino was very panicked. He was so panicked. Are you afraid? Crocodile looked at Galdino and asked with a smile. Galdino was stunned for a moment and wanted to hide something, but then he remembered that it was best not to lie in front of his big boss. Therefore, he was a little uneasy. He nodded and said, "It's a bit. You are honest and I appreciate your honesty with me," Crocodile said softly. After a slight pause, he said again, "When the time comes, you can stay on the ship." Gardino was overjoyed. Great. Great. There is no need to enter the battlefield, and the danger has been reduced a lot. He felt a little more at ease, and then Gardino said, "Boss, Totlan, this Cake Island is so messy, are we really sure?" "What kind of certainty are you talking about?" Crocodile glanced at Galdino and said, "Maybe it's because there is no one here who can talk to him, and Galdino is the only one of his own in the New World." In short, Crocodile seems to be in a good mood. "Yes, I am willing to discuss some things with Galdino." Galdino swallowed, and then said, "Defeat Charlotte Lingling, defeat the red-haired, these." Crocodile laughed and said very casually, "Just do your best." Gardino was stunned for a moment and tried his best. He thought that his big boss traveled thousands of miles and risked breaking a low profile to enter the New World just for this victory. He should be confident of winning. What, is he trying his best? Looking at Galdino's confused expression, Crocodile seemed to be in a happy mood. He smiled, exhaled a puff of smoke and said, "In the early years, there was a reason that I didn't understand, that is, whatever you do, you must leave yourself a way out, and you must make two plans, so that you can always win, and even if you lose, you will not fall." At that time, it was because he did not understand this truth that he was not prepared. He was defeated by Whitebeard and remained in despair for many years. Now, he has understood this truth. Therefore, whatever you do, you must leave yourself more room. This time, it is the same. You are right. The best case scenario is that I defeat Charlotte Lingling and take care of the red-haired guy. Join forces with Pero's Pero to take down the legacy of the Big Mom pirates. At that time, we can directly establish a foothold in the New World. After the matter in Alabasta is over, the two become one, and I will become the pirate emperor," Crocodile said in a deep voice. Gardino nodded, looking very approving. This was also his guest plan. But soon, Crocodile smiled, and then said, "But, similarly, we also be prepared to fail." "What happens if it fails?" Gardino couldn't help but ask. "There won't be much loss. It's just that things I have concealed for many years will be exposed, and I will be targeted by many people in the future. However, even if I mess up, it will be worth it." Crocodile smiled and said. "Worth?" Gardino was a little surprised. "Everything was screwed up and failed. What else is it worth? Things in Alabasta have almost been arranged. As long as I want, I can become the king of Alabasta at any time. Therefore, there is no need to continue to hold back. Even if we fail here, the war in the New World will be over in a short while. Yes, it will not end. Even if I am exposed, Orgrim and the others will not have time to take care of me in a short period of time. This period of time is enough for me to finish the work in Alabasta. At the same time, once we fail, Peyrosperit, and those who support him in the Big Mom Pirates, will have no place in the New World. Even, the same goes for fur people, you know what I mean?" Crocodile asked with an evil smile. Gardino was stunned for a moment. He is actually a very smart person, otherwise Crocodile would not look down on him. Soon, he figured it out and said, in other words, even if we fail, if Perospero and the others still want to survive, they must follow you, the boss, to evacuate out of the New World and return to Alabasta. That's right, so even if I failed, I still achieved the most fundamental goal, but the harvest was just a little less. Crocodile nodded. The reason why he came to the New World this time is to really bring Perospero to his ship. If he doesn't come, Perospero will mess up here. Then read it is also very possible that for the sake of Katakuri's favor, he would open up a wide margin and even absorb Perospero into the red-haired pirate group. At the same time, if Charlotte Lingling wins in the end, Perospero absolutely cannot escape and must be liquidated. In short, if he does not come, Perospero will cross thousands of mountains and rivers. After the failure, it is possible to escape to Alabasta to find him. Very small. And even if he goes, he won't be able to bring much power with him. So Crocodile must come. Now, he is here, and judging from the current situation, it is basically part of his calculation. No matter whether he joins the war in the end, the result is a win or a loss. In short, he will definitely make a profit without losing anything. If he wins, he will directly establish a foothold in the New World, and then quickly deal with the matter in Alabasta. The two forces merge into one, and he will directly reach the top of the Fourth World. Emperor. If he loses, he will quickly lead Perospero and the remnants of the Big Mom pirates to leave the New World. Return to Alabasta and still end things in Alabasta. If the time comes, the power in his hands has also increased dramatically, and there are also cotters who can use it. If the war is not over yet, he still has a chance to forcefully enter the New World. Even if there is no chance, he will still make a lot of money. In short, he will not at a loss. In this way, Crocodile does not have much pressure at all. He is not like Shanks, who has already staked everything. In this war, Crocodile, only makes small profits and big profits. The difference. You may make money with blood, but I, Crocodile, will never lose money. I'm so happy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 573. At this time, on Cake Island, Kaido, Charlotte Lingling, and Shanks were already engaged in a more intense battle. Kaido returned from his dragon form to his original appearance. Holding a mace in his hand, the tiger is like a tiger. Thunder gossip, with a flash of light in his eyes, Kaido roared. As he finished speaking, his figure rushed towards Charlotte Lingling at an extremely fast speed. The Emperor's sword in Charlotte Lingling's hand danced and slashed towards Kaido. These two guys are both real monsters in terms of physique. Kaido's thunderous gossip hit Charlotte Lingling, and the dead old woman had no intention of defending. Charlotte Lingling's the Emperor's sword slashed at Kaido, but Kaido had no intention of defending. The heavy mace hit Charlotte Lingling's chest suddenly. Charlotte Lingling's face sank, and she felt extremely powerful. The power penetrated into her body. The ground beneath her feet shattered and she was under a lot of pressure. Although it hurt, she did not suffer any injuries. She slashed with her backhand and said broken blade. The Emperor's sword also slashed on Kaido's chest, making a clanging sound like metal collision. Kaido laughed and said ha 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 ha, Lingling, your sword is still so weak. Shut up, Kaido, you have no real ability, Charlotte Lingling cursed. At this moment, Shanks arrived. His purpose was to kick Kaido out first. But at the same time, he did not intend to force himself to come forward, and prepared to let Charlotte Lingling follow Kaido just faced off, so he could do the attacking by himself and act as a support. Although Charlotte Lingling was secretly annoyed by Shanks' cunning, she had nothing to do. This matter was based on Kaido's will. Kaido, that bastard, seemed to be here just for her. She had no choice but to face him. God avoids, Shanks shouted in a low voice, and then went out with the slash in his hand. Kaido suddenly opened the mace in his hand, transferred it from Charlotte Lingling, and blocked Shanks before the slashing attack. The power of God's avoidance was extremely powerful, and it even knocked Kaido back a few steps. Humph, it's far worse than that guy Roger, Kaido snorted coldly. Charlotte Lingling took advantage of the situation and punched Kaido. Thunder fire crit, Charlotte Lingling roared. The power of fire and lightning controlled by Homais followed Charlotte Lingling's arm, condensed on her huge fist, and punched Kaido on the head. Kaido was staggered by this blow, and Shanks didn't waste any time. He exerted force with his feet and slashed out with another knife. The eagle opens the mountain. At the same time, Kaido stepped hard on his feet and stopped his staggering figure. His eyes flashed, he opened his mouth and exhaled, heading straight towards Shanks. The invisible wind turned into a sharp blade, and Shanks' face changed. He was not like Charlotte Lingling and Kaido, who were physically like monsters. He just had an average physique. He didn't dare to take Kaido's wind blade breath forcefully, and the sword in Shanks' hand was changed. The blow that originally struck Kaido struck the breath. At the same moment, the mace in Kaido's hand also came out. Furinkazan, Kaido shouted violently. Shanks's eyes flashed, and his arm domineering energy burst out, and he directly entered the second stage. In an instant, an invisible armor blocked him in front of him. The next second, Kai the extra mace brought great power, and he swung it on Shanks' body. His armed color and domineering spirit were almost shattered. Shanks's face changed again. In just a moment, his figure was like a cannonball. General, was knocked out by Kaido and smashed into the castle of Cake Island, causing a burst of smoke and dust. Charlotte Lingling frowned and cursed secretly for being cunning. At the same time, the Emperor's sword followed and slashed towards Kaido. Fireworks slash, Charlotte Lingling yelled. On Kaido's side, after knocking Shanks away with one blow, the mace in his hand turned around in the air with a dexterity that was not suitable for this heavy weapon, turning his left hand to his right. He changed his posture. Facing Charlotte Lingling's flaming slash, he swung the mallet again. Ha 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 ha, Lingling, it seems like your helper is not that good. Kaido laughed. Charlotte Lingling was secretly annoyed. Shanks, that bastard, definitely did it on purpose. It's not like she, Charlotte Lingling, didn't know about Kaido's offensive. Shanks' abilities, I also tried it out. There is no doubt that the three of them are people of the same level. As a result, when Kaido hit him with a hammer, Shanks flew away. Obviously, that bastard did it on purpose, just to put out less effort. If she didn't know his plan and didn't have Orgrim's letter, she might not think much about it in this fierce battle. But now she knows. Naturally, she understands the cunning of that bastard Shanks. Shut up. Awful, Charlotte Lingling cursed angrily. At the same time as she finished speaking, she punched Kaido in the face with the power of thunder and fire. Kaido also laughed and armed his hands. As soon as the se haki wrapped around him, he swung up Charlotte Lingling's fist. The two fists intersected, and flames and thunder exploded. Then, the armed se haki clashed, and powerful air waves erupted from both sides. People were swept away. The ground beneath their feet collapsed at the same time. Neither Kaido nor Charlotte Lingling wanted to give in. Their faces were heavy and they started wrestling with each other. After a stalemate for a while, Kaido's eyes flashed with scarlet. He opened his mouth. A dragon roar roared out, and then, his already very strong figure quickly changed. Fine dragon scales appeared on his body. In the blink of an eye, his body grew larger and became a half-dragon and half-human posture. The dragon tail behind the waist swung violently and slapped Charlotte Lingling in the face. At the same time, the rest of the island also started fighting. Hundreds of beasts, the leaders of the pirate group, taking the first of the three disasters, Fire Disaster and Ember, as their vanguard, forcibly broke through the defenses of the port and landed on the island. And in the sky above Cake Island, the dense clouds inside. There is a Navy warship lurking in the clouds. Yes, this warship is the ship of G-5's boss, the candidate for General, Mamoto Jun. And the reason why this warship is able to fly. It is precisely because of Fujitora Isuke's ability. This is also the main reason why Jun dares to go deep into the Totland Sea alone. With Fujitora Isuke's ability, they have both mobility and concealment. They have been enhanced a lot and can come and go freely. So far, no one has discovered that they are here. Jun holds a monocular telescope in his hand and is lying on the railing of the deck, observing the battle on Cake Island from top to bottom. She didn't dare to use any power such as knowledge and information haki randomly. Fujitora even smiled and covered the surroundings of the warship with his powerful knowledge and information haki to cover up the other people's observation and color haki. The whereabouts were discovered. Tisk tisk, look at how hard our King Shishibukai is fighting for our enemies. After Jun observed that Shank's guy was beaten away, he couldn't help but joked. Fujitora smiled and said with a smile, it seems that we came just in time. The war here has just begun. After all, we are very fast. Jun was still staring at the situation on Cake Island and said without looking back. After saying that, she straightened up from lying down, put away the telescope, touched her chin, and said with some doubts, it shouldn't be, the people from the Warhammer Pirates really didn't come, aren't they allies with Kaido? In their intelligence knowledge, the red-haired guy will not appear. So Kaido is responsible for dealing with the Big Mom pirates. In theory, he does not need any support, right? Fujitora smiled and said. This seems to be the case. Jun was stunned for a moment and said. How do we arrange it? Fujitora asked with a smile. Jun smiled and said, wait a minute. It seems that the red-haired man is planning to join forces with Big Mom first to kick Kaido out first. Once Kaido is kicked out, he will probably fall out with Charlotte Lingling. By then, there will be a chaotic fight. After that, we will take action. What about the goal? Fujitora asked with a smile. Ha 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 ha, whoever loses, we will deal with. If Charlotte Lingling loses, we will arrest her. Yonko, there is no such guy imprisoned in Imperial, Jun said with a smile. What if the red-haired guy loses? He belongs to the King's Shishibukai, shall we arrest him too? Fujitora smiled and thought for a while, then asked again. No, when the time comes, we will kill him, Jun said with a hint of lust in his eyes. Fujitora was stunned for a moment when he smiled, but before he could speak, Jun continued, that red-haired guy won't be able to be a king with peace of mind. Shishibukai, this time, once he wins, he will immediately declare his separation from the King's Shishibukai. If he loses, I think he may not have the opportunity to enter the new world in the future. Then he will be dangerous to our navy. He has a dispensable role, and anyone can play it. For the rest of the time, he wears the coat of King Shishibukai, and it is inconvenient for us to take action. But here, with such chaos, no one can control us, so get rid of him. He can just dump the blame on Kaido or Charlotte Lingling. No one will really investigate the truth, even if we pursue him. We are G-5, what should we be afraid of? Listening to Jun's murderous words, Fujitora smiled and couldn't help but ask, that red-haired Shanks, does he have any grudge against you? Jun was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, no, I have almost no contact with him. Among the pirates, the only guy who has a personal grudge against me is that bastard Orgrim. Then you were so cruel to him, Fujitora smiled and said. Ha 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 ha, I am a navy, so it is only natural that I should be cruel to pirates. Jun laughed and said. Like, it makes sense. Fujitora laughed and said. Jun is right, this is the center of chaos. If you kill Shanks here, no one will care. Fujitora didn't do anything good to King Shishibukai in the first place. Impression, so he supports Jun very much. After all, he is also a bold guy. At this moment, the phone bug Jun carried suddenly rang. He reached out and took out the phone bug. After taking a look, Jun said with a bitter look on his face, "It's over, it's Marshal Sengoku." He picked up the phone bug helplessly, but he hadn't spoken yet. The roaring voice of the Warring States Marshal has already been heard. Jun. What on earth are you going to do? The Warring States Marshal roared. He is now very disappointed with Kuzan and other senior generals of the Navy. It has been almost a month. As the Marshal of the Navy, I only know that the candidate for general under my command is. Did he go to the waters of Totland? Speaking of which, Kuzan was also very confused. At that time, on Ninklan Island, he learned about the battle on Sabri Island without even getting hot on his buttocks. So he left. He thought that Porisalano would report the matter of Jun to the Warring States Marshal, so he ignored the matter afterwards. As for Porisalano, he thought that the person who had just contacted Jun, it was Kuzan, and it was Kuzan who had a better relationship with Jun, so on the way, Kuzan should have told Marshal Sengoku about this matter. Therefore, he did not take care of it. This led to Marshal Sengoku. Regarding this, I knew nothing about it. It wasn't until not long ago that Kuzan and Polusalano met again, and when they talked about this matter, they discovered that no one reported this matter to the boss of the Warring States. At that time, Kuzan and Polusalano people are stupid. We quickly reported the situation together. It was only now that the Warring States learned about this situation. I immediately called Jun to question him. Marshal boss, why are you so angry? Jun asked with a panic in his heart, but still smiled on the surface. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 574. Hearing Jun's inquiry, the Warring States Marshal was stunned for a moment. What's so angry about it? Are you embarrassed to ask? Don't you have any idea about something? Jun, the order from headquarters to UG-5 is to seize control of the sea area at the gateway to the New World, right? Marshal Sengoku asked. Jun said shamelessly, of course, but according to my subordinate's report, our navy has already captured all the important islands in the New World gateway waters. The Warring States Marshal was choked by these words. What you said makes so much sense, I am speechless. Is this the reason why you ran to the waters of Totland? Do you know how dangerous it is there? Marshal Sengoku asked angrily. Jun's heart warmed. She understood the sentence clearly. Marshal Sengoku was not here to hold accountable. He was worried about the safety of her and Fujitora Yuxiao. In fact, this matter, on the surface, judging from the above, Jun did violate the order of the Marshal. But the problem is that Jun did not really step on the line. What is the nature of G-5? If it really wanted to go online, Jun did not violate the rules. It's just a bit tactful. Marshal, sometimes our navy has to take risks, Jun said softly. Marshal Sengoku took a deep breath, his tone became much calmer, and he asked, what on earth are you going to do? Let's see if you can help our navy eliminate some evils, Jun said without hesitation. Before Marshal Sengoku spoke, Jun continued, Marshal, if the navy wants to conquer the New World in the future, it will also need stronger prestige. Now, in this war, this is our opportunity to accumulate prestige. If I can seize the opportunity and arrest Charlotte Lingling, the Four Emperors, it will be the biggest achievement of our navy in recent years. Isn't it? Kachayanko? Sengoku has some thoughts in his heart. Does he want to do this kind of thing? Of course he does. But the problem is that the risk is too great, and he was unwilling to take such a risk before. But Jun has run away now, it's too late for him to say anything else. Of course, this is the best plan. If there is no chance, we will try and kill Shanks here, Jun said in a deep voice again. Kill Shanks? The Warring States Marshal was stunned. But soon, he came back to his senses. Previously, he used Shanks to bring the new world to the water was mudded and used to create conflicts within the pirates. At the same time, Shanks was pushed out to attract attention so that their navy could do things secretly. At the same time, if Shanks could kill Charlotte Lingling, that would be considered this is a good thing. After all, no matter what Shanks does in the future, at least when he kills Charlotte Lingling, he is still the king of the Shishibukai. For the navy and the world government, this is still an increase in prestige. As for what happens after this, Charlotte Lingling has fallen anyway. No matter how you calculate it, one of the great pirates is missing, and the navy is not at a loss either. Now, Jun says that she will either capture Charlotte Lingling this time, or kill Shanks. Sengoku could understand the considerations behind it. After a long time, Marshal Sengoku said, no matter what you want to do, Jun, the headquarters has not given you an order, do you understand? The Warring States period also has to consider the impact. If Jun really kills Shanks, then no matter what, the navy can get through it. But what if Shanks runs away? If Jun doesn't kill him, he is still if King Shishibukai doesn't reach the top, this will be a problem. The navy's sudden attack on King Shishibukai, especially in this cooperative environment, will affect the thoughts of the other 6 King Shishibukai. It will even affect the system of the Shishibukai under the king. As the marshal of the navy, Sengoku had to consider this matter. Of course Jun also understood, so she was not surprised and said with a smile, understand, isn't this what G-5 does in the new world? Everyone deserves credit and enjoys it together. If something goes wrong, we, G-5, will take the responsibility. I will take the responsibility. Even if things get into such a bad situation. The navy can't really do anything to Jun, a real member of her family, just because the king is under the Shishibukai. What's great is to punish her, deduct some merit, and give her some internal degradation on the surface. It would be enough to silence the Shishibukai and the others through punishments such as duties. But does she, Jun, care about this? Again, if she cares about this, why would she come to G-5? Compete with Kuzan and the others. Isn't it nice to compete for generals? Pay attention to safety. If nothing can be done, evacuate from the war vortex. I will arrange for Kuzan and Porisalino to find a way to deal with you. After thinking for a while, the Warring States Marshal said so. Jun smiled and responded softly, yes, Marshal, please don't worry. Soon, Marshal Sengoku hung up the phone. Jun also put away the phone bug. The Marshal is really partial to you, Fujitora smiled and said. Jun smiled, nodded, and said, after all, I am beautiful. Ha 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 ha, Fujitora smiled hearing this response and couldn't help laughing. But he knew that it was definitely not the reason. The navy is really a good place. I like this identity more and more. The war on Cake Island continues. Although the beast pirates seem to be alone, their combat effectiveness is still very strong. Kaido was 1 against 2, and in a short period of time, he did not show any signs of weakness or disadvantage. On the contrary, he played extremely wild and rough. It was very domineering and a hardy battle. The sky turned dark and bright, and the sun and moon took turns to appear. 2 days later, the battle here was still fierce and had not come to an end. No one from the gangsters hiding behind the scenes took action. It seems that they are waiting for the first round of victory to be decided first. At the same time, on an unknown island in the New World, the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates without a captain is stationed here. Moreover, Newgate himself was also on the island. Newgate was eating barbecue at this time, looking very leisurely. However, the intelligence organization of the Whitebeard pirates is also operating rapidly. The situation in the New World is continuously summarized here. Therefore, Newgate still knows a lot about the current situation in the New World. Taking a bite of the barbecue, Newgate asked while chewing, "Is that bastard Orgrim still in Avalon?" "Yes, Dad, he didn't make any movement at all, as if he didn't start the war." A pirate boy opened his mouth to report the report. "Cool la 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 la, this guy is really calm, he must be looking for me, right?" Newgate asked, laughing. "That's right, Happy Street has put out a secret bid, offering a reward of 2 billion Baileys to find information about us," the younger brother said quickly. "Rich and wealthy," Newgate said with some emotion. "Although he is a Yonko, in fact, he is the poorest among the top pirates. Not for any other reason, but because he is a philanthropist." "Dad, when are we going to take action?" "It's not a problem to be here all the time," another pirate couldn't help but ask. "Don't worry," Newgate waved his hands and said in a very kind tone. He was not angry because of his son's impatience. "There's already a fight over at Totlan? I heard that the red-haired boy is also there?" asked Newgate. "Yes, Dad. Today should be the third day, right?" "It seemed like the fight was very intense," the pirate boy responded. The appearance of the red-haired boy was a bit unexpected. This can be regarded as a variable. The war over there may change a lot, and maybe it will be our opportunity, Newgate said softly. What if there is no time to be us?" asked the pirate boy. "No matter what, it's time to take action," Newgate sighed with emotion. For so many days, he had been looking for an opportunity. No matter how fierce and chaotic the fighting outside was, he was not in a hurry. "But no matter how hard I searched, I couldn't find an opportunity to seize new initiative. Obviously that bastard Orgrim is sitting in Avalon, motionless. But in the war in the New World, the Warhammer pirates did not reveal any flaws or opportunities to them at all. That rascal, what a tough opponent to deal with," Newgate murmured. A red-haired figure appeared in the war in Totland Sea. Newgate didn't know whether Orgrim had known this kind of information before. But for him, this may be the last thing. Opportunity. Time is running out. Once the war in the Totland Sea comes to an end, no matter whether there is any opportunity to seize the initiative for the war, he cannot delay it any longer. Just thinking about these in Newgate when there was none, this guy Tikai ran over from a distance, with a simple and honest expression on his face, and said happily, "Dad, Marco is back." Newgate laughed and looked over there. Sure enough, Marco was running towards this area. "Dad, I'm sorry, I lost the battle," Marco came up and said, very ashamed. Newgate smiled, waved his hands and said, "This is how war is, there are wins and losses. Although you lost, Beist aside won. As of now, we have a better relationship with the Warhammer pirates. The team will win or lose, so don't take it to heart. That Beckman is really not an easy guy to deal with." Marco nodded, but he still felt a little ashamed in his heart. Newgate didn't criticize Marco for anything, although he said it very lightly. But in fact, Newgate has realized a problem. That is, it seems that the Whitebeard pirates really cannot defeat the Warhammer pirates. Don't look at the current war in the New World. It seems that both sides have a winner and a loser, and they are very anxious. But the parties concerned are clear in their hearts. Newgate knew that the Whitebeard pirates were almost at full strength. But what about the Warhammer pirates? Where is Douglas Barrett? Where is Joracole my hawk? No shadow has appeared. There are also some cotters who are the same. What does this mean? This shows that when facing the Whitebeard pirates, the Warhammer pirates have not used their full strength so far. Unknowingly, the Whitebeard pirates have been surpassed by the Warhammer pirates. But now, the final result can be reversed. It's the decisive battle between him and that guy Orgrim. He can't lose this battle. Not far away, Teach was also looking at his father and Marco, a good brother. He was also a little confused. Teach is a careerist and a gambler. He was betting that he would have a greater chance of finding the dark fruit in the Whitebeard pirates. But if he couldn't find it, he thought it wouldn't be a bad idea to spend his life as a member of the Whitebeard pirates. That's right, before the dark fruit appeared, Teach had never done anything that harmed the interests of the Whitebeard pirates. Before that, he really regarded himself as Whitebeard's son and recognized his identity as a member of the Whitebeard pirates. At this point he was confused. Dad, will you still maintain your strongest identity? Can the Whitebeard pirates really win? What should he do if he loses? Hateful, red hair, Orgrim, Teach cursed secretly in his mind. The stage that belongs to them has already appeared. And when will I have my own stage? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 575. A blast of heat shot across the sky, and the hilltop where the Cake Island castle was located was scratched by this blast, and 1/3 of the cliff was chipped away. The violent explosion set off violent airflow, causing the already somewhat broken castle to collapse again. Kaido was laughing wildly. His laughter resounded throughout the island. Ha 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 ha, so happy, Kaido laughed loudly. Then, he raised his hand and flicked out the mace in his hand. The next second, he saw the famous sword griffin in Shanks's hand slashing at him. The mace was on. Shanks was in a state of embarrassment at this time. There was blood flowing from his forehead, and there were blood stains everywhere on the white shirt on his body. The ends of his hair were a little curly, probably twisted by the high temperature, and on the shoulder of his left arm, there are still some scorched marks. But Shanks's injuries are not serious. At least compared to Kaido and Charlotte Lingling. After all, he is just a support guy. He is known as immortal. For many years, only Kojiki Oden has been able to leave scars on Kai. It was also very miserable at this time. In fact, it was not just Kojiki Oden who had broken Kaido's excellent defense. Kaido has traversed the sea for so many years, fought against Roger, fought against Whitebeard, fought against Chiji, and fought with Charlotte Lingling more than once. The Navy dealt with him many times. How could these people be less cruel than Kojiki Oden? It's just that Kaido left the scars that Kojiki Oden carved on his body. Maybe it's because he feels a little ashamed. The reason for sneak attack on that guy? In short, at this time, there was a huge incision on Kaido's chest, and there was still a scorched black feeling on it, as if it had been burned by fire. Not surprisingly, it should have been Charlotte Lingling's Emperor Sword. In addition, there is also a cut on Kaido's face, on the cheekbone, and the bone is clearly visible. It is the mark left by Shanks not long ago. There are also large and small bruises on his body. Overall, Kaido looks more embarrassed than Shanks. With a twist of his wrist, the meridians on his arm surged. Kaido roared, and the mace withstood Shanks' slash, swinging it out in a semicircle. In terms of strength, Shanks is still inferior. There was a ruthless look in his eyes, and the flip-flops under his feet seemed to be crushed, but he still couldn't withstand Kaido's huge strength and was knocked back by a blow. At this moment, Charlotte Lingling's tall figure descended from the sky with a majestic aura. Soul Curse, Charlotte Lingling roared and punched Kaido's figure. At this time, Charlotte Lingling's body was covered with invisible green flames, which seemed to be the power from the depths of her soul. Kaido roared, the free arm suddenly exerted force, and with the power of thunder and lightning, it punched Charlotte Lingling who was falling in the air. Electric sparks burst out from the place where the two fists collided. A large amount of thunder and lightning power spilled onto Charlotte Lingling's body. Charlotte Lingling's already messy pink dress became more fragmented, and the injuries on her body became more severe. A little heavier. Wow ah ah ah, Charlotte Lingling roared crazily. The ground beneath Kaido's feet suddenly collapsed, and the arm that was supporting Charlotte Lingling's punch also started to tremble. God avoids, Shanks also seized the opportunity. With a flash in his eyes, he raised his hand and flew out with a powerful slash. Kaido's reaction speed was extremely fast. He waited a little in his mind, and withdrew his force in his hand. The next second, Charlotte Lingling's fierce iron fist hit his chest directly. Poof! Kaido spat out a mouthful of old blood, feeling that his soul was shaking. Then, the huge figure was thrown away by Charlotte Lingling's punch. It turned into a cannonball and slammed into the cliff of Cake Island, where 1/3 of the mountain had been shaved off by his heat breath. The powerful impact shattered the cliff, and Kaido's tall figure smashed directly into the cliff. Then, the cliff that had stood for many years finally could no longer withstand the pressure brought by the war. Countless cracks spread out quickly like spider webs. Then, together with the Cake Island castle where Charlotte Lingling was resident, it collapsed. Kaido was buried in the collapse of the mountain. When Shanks saw this, his eyes flashed and he was also thinking. Taking down Charlotte Lingling was indeed his fundamental goal. But before that, joining forces with Charlotte Lingling to kick Kaido out is the first thing to do. Now, after 5 days of intense fighting, Kaido is clearly no longer a match for him and Charlotte Lingling. So, if I put in a little more effort, can I give it a try? Try the possibility of killing Kaido here? Shanks felt a little hot at the thought of this. Although Orgrim is his #1 competitor, there is no doubt that Kaido is also one of his opponents. He is also a man among the 4 emperors. If Kaido is eliminated here, there will be one less opponent in the future. At the same time, Kaido and Orgrim have a child marriage relationship, and there are rumors on the sea that their relationship is very good. The interests of the Beast Pirates and the Warhammer Pirates are constantly intertwined. They are a true ally. If Kaido is killed here, it will be a huge blow to the Warhammer Pirates and Orgrim from the side. It can effectively curb the spread of influence of the Warhammer Pirates and attack the bargaining chip held by Orgrim. These 2 points are long-term benefits. If we look at it from a short-term perspective, is this not a way out? In fact, Shanks broke the boat this time, leaving no escape route or room for himself, because he chose to join forces with Katakuri. This means that he has regarded the 3 pirate emperors of the New World as his enemies. Orgrim, Kaido, Charlotte Lingling. Once he fails, there will be absolutely no way for him to survive in the New World. Katakuri's thoughts were quite beautiful. If he put down his dignity, he would still have a chance. To put it bluntly, he offended Kaido, Orgrim, and Charlotte Lingling to death. Even if you put down your dignity, what can you do? Is it really possible for Whitebeard to accept him as his son? Are you sick? He and Whitebeard didn't have much friendship for no reason. There was something wrong with Whitebeard's brain, so he was able to accept the huge pressure brought by the 3 pirate emperors Orgrim, Charlotte Lingling, and Kaido. Shanks, this prodigal dog. Therefore, Shanks knew very well that once his plan failed, then it would be impossible for him to have any foothold in the New World. Unlike last time, he was kicked out of the New World without even fighting. This time, if he fights, he won't be able to fight for anything. The only option is to withdraw from the New World honestly, become the king of the Shishibukai yourself, and follow the Navy bosses to take advantage in the future. Let's see if the Navy can seize any opportunities in the New World in the future. At that time, maybe he can make a comeback. But, is this really possible? Shanks didn't know clearly. Before, he didn't want to think about it because he was already stressing out everything about it. Leave no way out, just to burn the boat. But now, at this point, he has opened up the possibility of a retreat. That is to first join forces with Charlotte Lingling to kill Kaido. Kill the dragon. If Kaido is killed here, this is tantamount to leaving his living space. After that, No matter whether he could beat Charlotte Lingling or not, at least there was a way out for him to retreat. If you can't swallow Charlotte Lingling, you can eat some of Kaido's inheritance. Shanks had just put his thoughts away when a violent explosion erupted from the ruins of the collapsed mountain. Then, Kaido's tall figure emerged from it in embarrassment. Although he was embarrassed, Kaido had a cheerful smile on his face. Ha 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 ha, that's how it should be. This is a hearty battle. Kaido laughed. Charlotte Lingling looked at Kaido with a very gloomy look and cursed angrily, "You damn lunatic, you must pay a heavy price this time." As soon as she finished speaking, Charlotte Lingling made a move with her bare hands. Then, the Emperor's sword, which had fallen on the ground far away, burst into flames, fearing that it might fly up and fall into Charlotte Lingling's hand. In her hand. Without giving Kaido a chance to speak again, Charlotte Lingling was carrying a green invisible flame, and she used her feet to kill Kaido. As Charlotte Lingling ran, there are many green flames in the sky, constantly flying towards Charlotte Lingling from all directions, and integrating into her body. These are the power of the soul. If you look at the entire Cake Island, you will find, a large number of Hamits were directly deprived of their lives. The power of souls in their bodies were converging on Charlotte Lingling. They slashed Kaido's mace with a sharp knife, and there was no trace of it. When any stalemate appeared, Charlotte Lingling immediately gave up the wrestling, and punched Kaido on the chest with her backhand. This time, Kaido's eyes darkened, and he once again felt that he was stronger than before. His soul trembled. This made his scalp numb. But it was only for a moment. Charlotte Lingling could not do any substantial damage to his soul. However, Shanks saw all this. He could not help but feel it in his hands. He tightened the handle of the knife tightly, and there was a ruthless look in his eyes. Soul fire crit, Charlotte Lingling roared again, and the green flames on her body solidified in an instant, and then a large amount of them poured into her fist. Then, this heavy fist full of soul power struck fiercely towards Kaido was hit on the head. Kaido was not willing to take the punch this time. He roared angrily and used his arms to get rid of Charlotte Lingling's obstruction and blocked her head. The next second, Charlotte Lingling's punch hit suddenly. Although it did not hit Kaido's head and was blocked by Kaido's arms. But Charlotte Lingling's punch still exploded with extremely powerful force. The power of the soul. Kaido's eyes became a little black again, and his thoughts were a little empty for a moment. But he will recover soon. However, it seems that the opportunity has been grasped. Shanks' figure was already rushing towards Kaido. At the same time, an extremely powerful overlord-like domineering energy burst out from his body in an instant. The world changes color. This domineering aura caused Charlotte Lingling's expression to change, and she forcibly raised her spirits to resist this impact. But Kaido is miserable. The blow from Charlotte Lingling originally made her soul feel unstable and her head confused. And most of Shanks' overbearing aura was directed at him. For a moment, Kaido couldn't think of anything else. I was shocked. Top masters are rarely affected by the overlord's domineering energy. Kaido hasn't felt this way in many years. Even if it is just for a moment, it is fatal enough at this time. There was a scarlet light in Shanks's eyes, and the famous sword griffin in his hand had a cold light. The flip-flops flew up under his feet, and he jumped and slashed at Kaido's neck with one knife. One sword style, secret meaning, dragon slaying, Shanks roared. Kaido had come to his senses at this time, but Shanks' powerful knife was about to fall on his neck. At this critical moment, Kaido also had a trace of ruthlessness in his eyes. Sexy. Who is not a desperado? A huge force of hot breath gathered in his mouth. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 576. Kaido did not spit out this hot breath. It exploded directly in his mouth. A powerful airflow burst out, and the next second, blood streaked across the sky. A violent explosion came from Kaido's body. Charlotte Lingling and Shanks were both thrown away by the blast of air. After Shanks landed, the griffin in his hand was shaking a little and was stained with bright red blood. Hit. This blood stain, there is no doubt about it. But, due to the influence of the explosion of heat breath, there seems to be some deviation in power and angle. The smell of death is so strong. This is the first time Kaido has felt such a feeling. The pain caused by breathing was burning and bloody. His neck felt like a bellows with a hole in it, as if he couldn't take in any air. In my ears, I can even hear the figure of the blood flowing continuously. Cough cough cough, Kaido covered his neck and coughed out a few mouthfuls of scattered blood. At the same time, a wisp of black smoke floated out of his mouth. He was severely damaged by the double injuries caused by the explosion and slashing. The smell of death became more and more solemn. In his mind, there are expectations and fears. This is death, Kaido thought in his heart. He had no regrets. A vigorous battle, and then a vigorous death. Isn't this the life he expected? But just when Kaido was ready to accept the feeling of death, to experience the feeling of another world. Suddenly, he thought of Orgrim. Orgrim's tall figure appeared in his mind. No. Can't die yet. I haven't told Brother Orgrim my last words yet, I haven't distinguished myself from him yet. Even if I die, I must die in his hands. Only then will I get what I want, Kaido thought in his heart. Kaido, who had given up resistance and was ready to embrace death with peace of mind, suddenly had a flash of light in his eyes. Orgrim, Kaido roared. This roar brought more blood. When the smoke cleared, his embarrassed figure also appeared in the sights of Shanks and Charlotte Lingling. Just now, the so-called dragon-slaying attack in Shanks's hand cut into Kaido's neck, severed his shoulder blade, and extended the incision from the neck to the chest. A large amount of blood was constantly flowing out. Kaido's his body was covered with charred black wounds and gunpowder smoke caused by the thermal breath explosion. He looked extremely embarrassed. He looked like he was in danger and might die at any time. After roaring, Kaido suddenly pressed his body against his body. On the terrible wound. Holding back the pain, he suddenly mobilized the surrounding muscles and relied on his strong physical fitness to close the wound. Although it could not heal the wound, it could still heal to a large extent. It slowed down the deterioration of the injury and slowed down the blood loss a lot. The powerful power of the animal type and the phantom beast species supported his vitality. As long as Kaido did not embrace death with peace of mind, death would not be able to be taken away quickly. His vitality. However, this is still a lingering breath. This level of injury can already be regarded as a fatal injury. Even if Kaido forcibly stopped the deterioration of the injury, it does not mean that the injury cannot affect him. If he continues to fight, he will soon lose the power to resist and will definitely die at that time. Charlotte Lingling and Shanks looked at each other at this time. There was a look of excitement in their eyes. Opportunity, an opportunity that has not been seen in decades. The opportunity to completely kill Kaido, the monster, the so-called immortal bastard. Shanks's eyes flashed, and without any hesitation, he grabbed the trembling famous sword griffin, with one movement of his feet, rushed towards Kaido. With a ruthless look in his eyes, Kaido raised his other arm, as if he wanted to resist. "You can't stop it," Shanks shouted. Griffin carried a dark-armed domineering force. However, at this moment, Shanks' originally excited expression suddenly changed. It was frightened and angry. Black knife dodge. I don't know where, there was such a soft cry. The sharp blade in Shanks' hand that was originally going to slash at Kaido had to be pulled inward and blocked in front of his chest. The next second, A sharp the slash seemed to cut through space and time. Suddenly, he appeared in front of Shanks and slashed hard at the famous sword griffin. The powerful slash force knocked him back and flew him away. Go out. Charlotte Lingling's face also changed. She knew that a change had occurred. After landing, Shanks took 2 steps back and relieved the power of the slashing attack on his body. He frowned and looked towards the distance behind Kaido. Among the ruins, Joricole Mihawk, known as the world's greatest swordsman, was slowly walking out from there. In his hand, he was holding the black sword, Knight, which ranks among the most powerful swords. The tip of Knight's sword slashed across the ground along the blade. Mihawk's footsteps were light and steady. But there was no surprise in Kaido's eyes. Are you okay, Boss Kaido? Mihawk asked softly. Kaido still covered his fatal wound and said, Is Nightingale here? He asked this question directly without any nonsense. Unfortunately, Mihawk shook his head. Kaido looked a little uncomfortable, and then said that's really unfortunate. I can no longer fight. Even with this injury, I can only suppress it for 1 day at most. If I don't evacuate and treat it quickly, even with my fantasy beast species, even the self-healing power and vitality cannot be withheld. If Nightingale were here, with his medical skills and devil fruit abilities. It is not said that Kaido can be cured in minutes, but it can definitely restore Kaido's injuries to a great extent. The kind that turns serious injuries into minor injuries. Under this situation, Kaido felt that he could still continue fighting. But now, Nightingale is not here. Then he must evacuate, otherwise, he will definitely die. Seeing this, Mihawk said, No problem, we will cover your evacuation. As soon as Mihawk finished speaking, Charlotte Lingling's eyes flashed with a fierce look, and her feet moved slightly, as if she was about to take action. But just as she made a slight movement, the next second, a gunshot was heard, and then, a bullet came first. Hit Charlotte Lingling on the chest. No injuries appeared. Charlotte Lingling was known as a steel balloon, but the defensive power of her body could actually be penetrated by a bullet. But the next moment, the bullet exploded. A powerful explosion came from Charlotte Lingling, causing the old woman to stumble and push back a step. Although there are still no injuries, he looks a little embarrassed. Ha 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 ha, don't move. I won't use this kind of bullet next time. I also want to try to see if it can break the defense of your so-called steel balloon. A little loli with twin ponytails stood on the ruins, holding 2 revolvers and laughing wildly. Sphinx, Charlotte Lingling looked at the little Lolita with a trace of hatred and anger in her eyes. Yes, the little Lolita is the Sphinx. Charlotte Lingling can be said to hate her. It's to the bone. If this bastard Loli hadn't defeated and captured Deifuku wouldn't have had his head chopped off by that bastard Orgrim and given to her. If Deifuku hadn't died, she and Katakuri, there will be no cracks in this favorite son. The Big Mom pirates will never reach this stage. All of this is the trouble planted by this bastard Lolita Sphinx. Ha 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 ha, it's me, what? Want to kill me? Come. Do it. Sphinx said provocatively with a crazy smile on his face. At the same time, Shanks looked at Mihawk and said, Can't you give me some face? The black knife in Mihawk's hand, moved slightly and said softly, Only this time, no. As soon as he finished speaking, he pressed the black knife down a little, and the sharp tip of the knife pierced into the ground. Walk, Kaido gave Shanks a final, thoughtful look, twitched the corners of his mouth, and said with a cruel smile. After saying that, Kaido turned around and left without hesitation. Shanks and Charlotte, however, Te Lingling did not move. If she had taken action forcefully at this time, she should have been able to stop her. But the problem was that there was some filth between these two guys. For a while, this weird situation formed. Kaido, this Yonko, who was seriously injured and almost died, turned around and left in a swagger. But Shanks and Charlotte Lingling had no intention of pursuing them. Sphinx smacked her lips in boredom looking at the two of them. He muttered, "What, you don't even dare to do anything." As she finished speaking, she raised her hand and fired a gun into the air. Then, a firework exploded in the air. This was a signal for retreat. "Kaido is leaving, so we can't kill the beast pirates. Are the cotters of the regiment still staying on this island?" She shook her head boredly, hung the revolver on her waist, and Sphinx was ready to evacuate with them. However, at this moment, her eyes changed. The left arm instantly turned into a heavy shield with sharp barbs, and the armed domineering force directly covered it, and the right hand evolved into a spear. At the same time, the heavy shield was pushed forward on the spot, and the right arm turned into the spear thrust directly forward. The next second, a trident pierced the Sphinx's heavy shield, and then, the Sphinx's spear pierced the body of a tall figure, but there is no real feeling. "Ha ha ha, Katakuri," the Sphinx laughed. Katakuri had a flame of hatred in his eyes. He had no intention of talking to the Sphinx. His other hand turned into a sticky cake and slapped it towards the Sphinx. Covered with the Sphinx. "Is this really easy for me to mess with?" the Sphinx cursed loudly. As soon as she finished speaking, her figure expanded slightly. The next moment, her whole body turned into a big bomb and exploded on the spot. The powerful impact of the explosion while Katakuri was blown away. The figure of the Sphinx reappeared from the smoke of the explosion. "Gone," my hawk called out. Sphinx responded without hesitation, "You go first, I will come to stop you, ha 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 ha." Then, the Sphinx took off the heavy Gatling gun from behind, yanked it hard, pointed the gun muzzle at Katakuri, and started shooting directly. But the Sphinx is not a person after all. Really crazy. While she was strafing Katakuri, her steps were also slowly retreating. Katakuri stood still, with a powerful sense of domineering, as if he had already predicted the future. The bullet whizzed through his body without leaving any injuries. Then, he tightened his grip, and the trident carried an armed and domineering power. However, just when he was about to take action, he stopped. He stopped his movements and said softly, "I know." Shanks, who was about to stop him, suddenly stopped what he was about to say. "There won't be a next time, Sphinx." Katakuri stared at Sphinx and said. "Next time they meet again, he will definitely kill that damn bastard Loli. There will never be another chance for her to leave calmly." Sphinx, a crazy and evil smile appeared on the corner of C's mouth. He licked his lips and said, "Your stupid brother Defu also said such things to me, ha 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 ha, farewell." Katakuri's forehead was filled with green veins, the murderous aura in his eyes was about to solidify. But in the end, he stopped taking action. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 577. Weird. The situation on Cake Island at this time is quite strange. The beast pirates are clearly on the verge of defeat. But their retreat seemed quite calm. Because, the Big Mom pirates did not pursue. At the same time, Pero, along with the foreign ministers of the Big Mom pirates, began to gather towards Charlotte Lingling. On the other side, Smoothie, Cracker, and others, together with several cotters of the red-haired pirates, gathered towards Katakuri. Soon, these people were all gathered together. Charlotte Lingling looked at Shanks with a slightly gloomy look. After a long time, she asked, "Now, the beast pirates have been defeated. Shanks, our Big Mom pirates can give you support and support your counter-attack against the beast pirates." Shanks nodded, with a smile on his lips, and said, "You are right, according to the agreement, this is how it should be." However, after saying that, Shanks did not make any move. Katakuri stood silently and didn't speak. Smoothie, Cracker, and others all had strange looks on their faces. "What are you waiting for?" Charlotte Lingling suddenly asked. "I'm thinking, with my hawk and the others here, our red-haired pirate group may be a little weak. I wonder, can I invite you to pursue it with me? Shanks asked with a smile. Charlotte Lingling also laughed. But on her face, there was a sneer. I'm sorry. You have also seen what Cake Island is like now. I have a lot of aftermath matters that need to be dealt with, Charlotte Lingling said. After a slight pause, Charlotte Lingling said again, Prospero, take your people and help our good ally. Prospero's eyes flashed with light, and he did not refuse anything. He responded softly, yes, mother. Charlotte Lingling nodded first, then looked at Katakuri and said, Katakuri, see you off. Katakuri listened to this, but did not respond. He just looked at Charlotte Lingling's eyes with some indifference and ruthlessness. Can't you hear me? Charlotte Lingling asked with a hint of anger in her eyes. No, audible, Katakuri said softly. But before Charlotte Lingling could speak, Katakuri continued to say calmly, but I have heard enough of what you said over the years. After all, has everything come true? That bastard letter from Orgrim? When Katakuri remained unmoved, Charlotte Lingling already understood everything. The last bit of luck in her heart was also broken. Katakuri, his favorite son. The perfect man who is called the highest masterpiece of the Charlotte family. After all, still chose to betray her. Hey, if you have something to say, why bother doing this? Never use a gun or a knife, Shanks stopped him with a smile. But at the same time as the last word knife in his words fell, a fierce light flashed in his eyes, and the griffin hanging on his waist was unsheathed directly, and with a flash of cold light, he slashed towards Charlotte Lingling. Charlotte Lingling also had a sinister smile on her face, and the Emperor's sword in her hand came out with a backhand, blocking Shanks' griffin with one knife. At the same time, Katakuri no longer had any hesitation, and suddenly exerted force on his feet. The trident in his hand hung up with a domineering force, and pierced Charlotte Lingling's eyes. Prospero's eyes flashed, and his movements seemed a bit slow, unable to catch up with the blow, but he also pointed the lollipop in his hand towards Katakuri. Smoothie and Cracker looked at each other, and finally made up their minds. Smoothie raised his hand and slashed out, directly cutting off the lollipop in Prospero's hand. Cracker even launched a brazen attack on Charlotte Lingling. The pretzel in his hand brought out an edge. Boom! After a loud noise, Charlotte Lingling distanced herself from Shanks. Katakuri and Cracker also failed to hurt Charlotte Lingling, who was slow to react. Prospero stood next to Charlotte Lingling, looking at Smoothie and others. Pokermus, Baron Dandon, and the cotters of the Foreign Affairs Department all gathered around Prospero, looking as if they were guarding Charlotte Lingling. But Shanks' face didn't look very good. Because he found that Charlotte Lingling seemed to be prepared? You know? Shanks asked in a deep voice. Charlotte Lingling looked at Shanks, the troublemaker, with some disgust in her eyes. She ignored him, but instead looked at Katakuri again and said softly. Katakuri, you are my most beloved son, so I can give you a chance. I have already known everything about what you and Shanks, the treacherous white-eyed wolf, have planned. You have no chance, yes, so now you go and take down the red-haired pirates, and I will pretend that nothing has happened. Charlotte Lingling didn't notice when she called Katakuri her most beloved son. Prospero, who was standing next to him, had a calm face, but there was a complicated look in his eyes. No, Katakuri still spoke calmly. After a slight pause, he continued, for many things, after making a decision, why bother weighing the pros and cons? What's more, we may not lose. Hearing Katakuri's rejection, Charlotte Lingling's eyes filled with anger, and she couldn't help but question and roared, why? Why are you betraying me? I'm your mother. Charlotte Lingling's rage made Smoothie and Cracker a little frightened, with cold sweat on their foreheads. But Katakuri took 2 steps forward and blocked the two of them with his tall body. In front of them. For some reason, looking at their brother's back, the fear of their mother in Smoothie and Cracker's hearts completely dissipated. "I never deny that you are our mother," Katakuri said softly. Charlotte Lingling didn't speak, and Shanks was also observing the situation, but also didn't make any move. "But you, as a mother, are incompetent," Katakuri said fearlessly as before. Charlotte Lingling asked fiercely, "Nonsense, who do you think raised you? Who is it that gives you shelter and allows you to roam freely on the sea?" "It's me. Everything you have is given to you by me." "But you, are you using betrayal to repay me? We have spent half our lives repaying your kindness in raising you. Without us, just you alone, the Big Mom Pirates would not have developed to where it is now. This kindness has been returned to you, but Mom, why have you given back your coldness, your ruthlessness, and your selfishness to us over the years? More brothers and sisters have died in your hands than in the hands of outsiders," Katakuri retorted with a somewhat harsh tone. "That's because they are both at fault. That's because I have Cyradia. You know, a lot of times, it's not my intention," Charlotte Lingling roared. "It is precisely because you have Sirka that I can convince myself time and time again that you are unintentional. Even if you do these heinous things, you will eventually be able to give more people on the sea. Brothers and sisters, one shelter." Katakuri was not afraid at all, and retorted in a deep voice despite the pressure from Charlotte Lingling. Before Charlotte Lingling could speak again, Katakuri continued, "Until Orgrim appeared, until Butter Island, our failure, and Defoe's death, I finally understood one thing, Mother, you have no courage anymore, you are no longer the Big Mom that once dominated the world. You have fear of Orgrim. Your power, that soul fruit, will never be able to hurt Orgrim. You can't avenge Defoe at all, and you won't be able to protect more brothers and sisters from Orgrim's warhammer in the future. You will only let us die one by one in front of you, so that for your lingering power, buy more time. Shut up. It's all lies. I'm a Big Mom. When I was running rampant on the sea, that Orgrim guy didn't know," Charlotte Lingling roared in shame and anger. "Ha ha 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 ha, are you angry?" Katakuri couldn't help laughing. Charlotte Lingling was stunned for a moment. "A weak person like you who is immersed in the glory of the past will never be able to enter the new era. You are far worse than Kaido, Byogrim, and Newgate. At least, they have never. You don't deny your failure, but you don't dare to face failure, let alone face the future. Tell me, what did you do in this war that has been foreseeable for a long time? You have done nothing. You only think about being able to withstand the impact of this war and keep your ridiculous and pitiful position as the four emperors. Apart from that, you have done nothing. You dare not use your strength. Stretch out to the waters of Totland, you don't dare to fight, he is a failed incompetent person." Katakuri unceremoniously tore apart Charlotte Lingling's disguise and described her weakness and incompetence in a naked and visceral manner. "You bastard," Charlotte Lingling roared in embarrassment. "Why did I choose red hair? Even if he, Shanks, has nothing now, he can't compare with you, but he has a restless heart, and he can risk everything for his own ambitions and dreams. This is what you no longer have. With his enterprising spirit, his ship, although small, will surely reach the new era, but you will never be able to get there. Even if what he has is so weak, as long as he has a restless heart and the courage to never give up, one day he will become stronger than you, possessing everything you have, and he will never be able to capture you." Honor, Katakuri stung Charlotte Lingling's sensitive and fragile pride without mercy. "The most important thing is that in him, I see in you that the ambition that can lead us to revenge has been extinguished." Katakuri roared. Even the scarf that covered his ferocious mouth could no longer cover it up. "Shut up," Charlotte Lingling roared. The Emperor's sword in her hand slashed at Katakuri. The trident in Katakuri's hand took on an armed and domineering aura and blocked it forward. But the summer in his mouth, no matter how unbearable Lot Lingling was, her strength was still truly powerful. With an angry blow, Katakuri couldn't stop it. As soon as her feet came loose, the ground shattered, and then, the tall figure, was slashed away by Charlotte Lingling. At the same moment, Shanks said with a smile, Captain Roger once said a word, that is, only the brave can seize the opportunity to fight in the angry sea. Future. Charlotte Lingling, there is no future for you in this sea. As he finished speaking, he once again brought out a cold light in his hand and slashed at Charlotte Lingling. At this moment, the alliance between the red-haired pirates and the Big Mom pirates was broken. At this moment, the alliance that had been traversing the world for so many years was broken. The Big Mom pirate group has finally ushered in a split. In the fierce sea battle, only the brave can seize the future. The Big Mom pirate group has already lost its future. Please give me flowers and monthly votes. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 578. Red-haired Shanks is despicable and cunning, and what he did can be called insidious. But I have to admit that he has always had a heart that dares to fight against the angry sea. He is a brave man. And Charlotte Lingling, she is powerful, but also despicable and cunning. But in the end, I no longer had the heart to dare to fight against the angry sea. She is not a brave person. There is no future for her on the sea. This is why Orgrim no longer regards her as his main enemy since the Battle of Butter Island. Because Orgrim has already realized this. In this case, with his pattern and his height. Why bother fighting with someone who is destined to have no future? There are so many careerists on the sea, and there are plenty of people to deal with Charlotte Lingling. At this time, neither side seems to be in its prime. Although Kaido didn't do anything earth-shattering during his visit this time. But the shit-stirrer is actually very competent at his job. The members of the red-haired pirates, headed by Katakuri and Shanks, and some of the children of the Big Mom pirates, launched a crusade against the Big Mom pirates. Perospero, with his foreign ministers, seemed to be the last power in Charlotte Lingling's hands. The two sides began to fight in a civil war. The Cake Island, which had just calmed down for a while, broke out into chaos again. At this time, the beast pirates have not retreated too far. Standing on the deck, Sphinx held a monocular telescope in his hand and looked behind the ship at the noisy Cake Island. He shouted with some dissatisfaction, "It's all your fault, Boss Kaido, for being so careless. Otherwise we can fight back now? I'm so angry. This kind of opportunity." Kaido was slumped on a bench at this time, with several doctors beside him, who were nervously giving him stitching up that terrible wound. After listening to Sphinx's words, Kaido couldn't help but laugh. But his smile opened the wound again, causing the sutures that had just been sutured to break apart. However, the doctor dared not speak out in anger, so he could only swallow his anger and go to suture again. "Ha ha 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 ha, I've already had a good beating anyway. Look, he almost died." Kaido laughed and said, "Damn it, you selfish bastard, you gave me a good beating, but I didn't even warm up. The same goes for that idiot from Katakuri. I even killed his brother, but he can still hold back his anger. He is really convinced by these stinky bastards," the Sphinx complained cursingly. Not far away, my hawk folded his arms on his chest and carried the black knife yet. He was also standing on the deck, looking at the chaotic Cake Island in the distance. "Shanks," my hawk murmured softly. His mood was a little complicated at this time. From the perspective of the Warhammer pirates, he didn't want Shanks to win. From a personal perspective, he hopes Shanks can stand at a higher position. That way, they will have more opportunities to fight against each other in the future. However, Orgrim has already warned Charlotte Lingling. Can Shanks really win? Charlotte Lingling can't really be that stupid, can she? After sending Kaido out of the sea area, Sphinx, we will come back. My hawk said suddenly. Sphinx's face lit up and said, "Really? Well, didn't we agree before?" My hawk smiled and said, I thought Boss Kaido was so seriously injured that the previous agreement was cancelled, Sphinx said carelessly. Mihawk said softly, if I don't come, I may not be able to fight Shanks again for many years to come. Do you still want to fight him? The Sphinx muttered somewhat strangely. Of course, maybe before Andre grew up, the red-haired guy was my only kendo opponent. Mihawk nodded and said very seriously. After finishing speaking, Mihawk shook his head again and said, let's not talk about this anymore. I will go and inform Plank about the matter. Then, Mihawk turned and walked towards the cabin. At the same time, above Cake Island, on the G-5 warship, Jun also became excited. When Kaido was killed by Shanks and Natsu, when Lot Lingling was seriously injured and almost died, Jun was so happy that she almost jumped up. At that time, she almost couldn't hold it back and was about to take Fujitora Uchiha to attack Kaido. After all, Kaido was too. This is a Yonko, and he is also a guy who claims to be immortal. If he can be killed, it will be a big gain. But soon, Jorakor Mihawk appeared. Jun also suddenly came back to his senses. Not to mention, with Mihawk and the Sphinx protecting him, and Kaido evacuating under the protection of the beast pirates, whether he and Fujitora's thrust could succeed. But Mihawk, the appearance of, represents the intervention of the Warhammer pirates. This reminds Jun of Kaido's other identity, a close ally of Orgrim. Nowadays, everyone knows that Orgrim and the world government, there is bad blood between them. Jun himself knows it. Therefore, the tone of the Navy is not to provoke the Warhammer pirates. In the past few years, the two sides have not had any particularly big conflicts. Before that, the battle in the Gateway Sea area of the New World was just a trivial matter. That's all. No one will really take it to heart. But if Kaido is killed here, the nature is different. Moreover, with Mihawk and Sphinx protecting him at their peak, they may not be able to kill Kaido. In comparison, Charlotte Lingling and red-haired Shanks are more valuable and cost-effective. The possibility of being caught by them is also greater. After all, the warring States Marshal has already acquiesced. Capturing Charlotte Lingling will have no bad impact at all, and killing Shanks will have no big consequences. Looking at it this way, it's not worth taking the risk for Kaido. Let's take these 2 bites of Charlotte Lingling and Shanks into our mouths first. Therefore, Jun suppressed his restless heart and continued to wait for a while. Sure enough, just as they guessed, Shanks had a falling out with the Big Mom pirates. The fight started. Previously, when Charlotte Lingling and Shanks fought against Kaido, they were not seriously injured even though they were 2 against 1. But there are still some injuries and physical exertion that should be expected. Now, they are fighting again. No matter what the fight will be like in the end, who of the 2 of them can win in the end? But for Jun and Fujitora Isuke, it was enough. Recharge your batteries and take them down in one go. Even Jun felt that if the opportunity was right, there would be no need to choose one or the other. You can choose to capture Charlotte Lingling first and then kill Shanks. This is simply delicious. Fight, fight well. Try to fight more intensely. Jun couldn't help but waved his arms and whispered. Fujitora on the side smiled and was also looking forward to it. Unlike Jun, he was still controlling his own abilities, and had been doing so for many days. Otherwise, this warship should have been falling down. Although compared to the guys below, I felt much more relaxed. But Fujitora smiled and still hoped that they would lose both sides as soon as possible, so that he wouldn't have to suffer like this. He could go down and vent his emotions during this period. Let all your unhappiness out. After the fight, go back to G-5 to gamble a few times and be happy. With a smile, report what happened here to the headquarters and tell the marshal that our chance is coming. That red-haired bastard really fell out with Charlotte Lingling. By the way, can those 2 nagging guys Kuzan and Porisalino come to support us? Jun stared at the situation on the Cake Island while giving his instructions. Fujitora smiled and nodded. I understand, I will report now. At the same time, on the other side of the sea, Duke Inarashi also received news from the island. At this time, he was talking to Crocodile about the situation there. That red-haired Shanks is indeed what Mr. Perospero said, with bad intentions. Katakuri actually started a rebellion. Now is the time for us to take action to suppress the rebellion, right? In this way, Mr. Perospero's kindness can be repaid, Duke Inuarashi said. Crocodile, after listening to this news, still looked calm, and the old god was there. He smiled, picked up a cup of coffee from the table, and took a calm sip. He didn't speak in a hurry. But Duke Inarashi asked anxiously, did you understand? Of course I understand. Crocodile smiled and said. Just when Duke Inarashi was about to speak, Crocodile took a sip of coffee and said softly, yes, your craftsmanship is much better than the previous 2 days. Thank you boss for your praise, I can continue to improve. Gardeno on the side quickly responded. Hello, Duke Inuarashi couldn't help shouting. Don't be too anxious, Inuarashi, what were the exact words Perospero told you? Think about it carefully. Crocodile put down the coffee cup in his hand and chuckled. Mr. Perospero said that Katakuri and Shanks are likely to conspire to start a rebellion, and he needs our power to defeat Katakuri, Duke Inarashi said solemnly. That's right, defeat Katakuri, Inuarashi. Among all the things Perospero mentioned to you, did any of them mention that he wanted to put down the rebellion? Crocodile laughed evilly and asked softly. Duke Inarashi was stunned for a moment. He began to recall the conversation with Perospero. After thinking for a long time, he discovered that Mr. Perospero, it seems that there is really no mention of countering the rebellion. At this time, others were a little stupid. If Crocodile hadn't asked him this question, he wouldn't have thought much about it. But now, looking at Crocodile's calm look, it's obvious that he knows more. And things are not what I thought. In order to help the Big Mom pirates put down the rebellion, Mr. Perospero invited their fur tribe to lurk aside, always ready to take action. It seems like. You see, defeating Katakuri is what Perospero wants to do. How can he defeat Katakuri? Physically, defeat him? Ha ha ha, Crocodile asked with an evil smile. You mean, Duke Inarashi couldn't help but ask. You asked me before, can I beat Charlotte Lingling and Red Hair? Maybe you mentioned Charlotte Lingling just casually, but now, let me tell you, you are right, Charlotte Lingling is also in our hunt, Crocodile said in a deep voice. This, Duke Inarashi now understood what this meant. How can Perospero defeat Katakuri? Of course, in this hunt launched by Katakuri, the last prey was hunted. Perospero called them here, not to put down a rebellion. It should be said that Perospero himself represents a new force. He is also a rebel. It seems that you understand, then I don't need to explain anything to you. Just wait and let the prey fight each other for a while. When they have lost more power, the real hunter will appear. Crocodile said in a very calm tone. He is not Kaido, nor Orgrim, nor Whitebeard. He will pursue a vigorous and hardy battle. As long as he can pick the fruits of victory, he will. That's it. The process is not important at all. Isn't it good to use only one part of your efforts to do 10,000 things? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 579. Avalon Island in the Eternal Night Sea. In the courtyard of Orgrim. At this time Orgrim was pruning her favorite flowers and plants with Queen Stussy. Not far away, Robin was sitting quietly in his chair, reading a book. There was a soft click. Orgrim cut off a branch. Queen Stussy looked back, nodded with satisfaction and said, "Not bad. Gee ha 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 ha, What about that? I am also a craftsman, Orgrim said a little bit. At least a little more powerful than that little guy from the Sphinx, Queen Stussy said next. Orgrim's face, which was still a bit stinky, suddenly froze. Is this a compliment to me? It should be, right? Somewhat annoyed, Orgrim ignored the queen and stretched out the scissors. After moving towards another branch and gesticulating inwards, he felt that it was too short to cut it. So Orgrim was about to move it out. However, at this moment, the phone bug on the table next to Robin appeared. Suddenly rang. The squeaking sound startled Orgrim, who was concentrating, and with a shake of his hand, he cut with the scissors. There was another soft click. Those beautiful branches were cut off directly by Orgrim. The queen, who was watering the flowers, wailed, "Ah, my Alice! Oh my God, Alice! Have you named these flowers and plants?" Orgrim was a little at a loss. The queen pushed Orgrim away, looked down at the broken branch with heartache, and then said angrily, "You are worse than the Sphinx." After saying this, she seemed to be getting angrier as she thought about it. With tears in his eyes, the adult reached out and slapped Orgrim on the chest, cursing, "It's a mess outside, and you're still causing trouble for me at home." "I'm so angry." On the other side, Robin was a little funny. Looking at that scene, Joan answered the phone and said, "Mr. Plank." "Hello, Robin." Plank listened to the voice and asked. "It's me," Robin replied with a smile. "Why is it so noisy over there? Did Mr. Hammer make the queen angry again? Does he have time now?" Plank asked a little amusedly after listening to the voice. "Well, that's right, Orgrim seems to have disabled Alice. The queen is very angry and is teaching Orgrim a lesson," Robin said a little funny. "Who is Alice?" Gangplank was confused. "I have never heard of this person. Lord Hammer crippled him. What a cruel method." "It's a fluorescent grass planted by Stussy's sister," Robin said with a smile. "Gangplank. You can eat dog food. We are fighting to the death in the New World, and Lord Hammer is flirting with the queen at home. Is this the life of a boss? I love it so much, but I don't know when I will retire. I've been feeling a little tired lately. I also want to spend time at home with my wife and kids in my arms." "Ah, no, wake up, I don't have a wife." "Do you need me to call Orgrim?" Robin asked again. Gangplank said fiercely, "Yes. We must interrupt Mr. Hammer's happy life. Is this considered revenge?" Robin smiled, and then called to Orgrim and the queen. "Orgrim, Sister Stussy, Prang Mr. K called. It seems he has something very, very important to report." "Ganglank. I didn't say it was particularly important." Orgrim was hugging Queen Stussy and coaxing her to say nice things. After hearing Robin's call, Orgrim nodded and said no. Queen Stussy seemed fine on the surface, but she was a little unhappy in her heart. "Huh, why do you always interrupt me at this time, Gangplank?" For a moment, she remembered many times in the past. She was talking to Orgrim was sleeping, and Gangplank called the door in the middle of the night. All this must be recorded in a small notebook, so that he can wear small shoes in the future. Gangplank didn't know that due to Robin's fueling, he had once again been on the Queen's blacklist. Her lady queen is already thinking about what kind of delicious food she will cook for him. When the war is over, we must reward this intelligence leader who has devoted his whole life to the Warhammer pirates. What could be more sincere than a meal cooked by one's own hands? Orgrim walked up to Robin and glanced at the book Robin was reading. Then he muttered, "Don't be brainwashed by those bastards from the Revolutionary Army." That's right, the book in Robin's hand was System and Change, written by that guy Darag himself. Robin smiled and said, "No, I'm just spying on the route of the Revolutionary Army. Maybe, it seems that what they want to do is not actually overthrowing the world government." Orgrim's eyes lit up and he looked at Robin in surprise. Then, he picked up the phone and asked, "Glank, What is something particularly important to report? Mr. Hammer, that's just a joke from Robin, but it's really important. Gangplank said with a smile. At the same time, Orgrim said to Robin, it's interesting. How did you see it? Because the book has been emphasizing the change of the system, but in essence, it does not seem to be slandering and opposing the world government system. It just believes that the system has certain flaws, such as top-down corruption and depravity. He hopes that he can work hard to change this. Is this the change he wants? Robin thought for a while and then said. Orgrim nodded, and then asked the phone bug, what's the matter? Boss Kaido is defeated. Gangplank said softly. Orgrim raised his eyebrows and smiled. Isn't that within our expectations? Anyway, he didn't think he would win, he just wanted to have a good time. After laughing, Orgrim looked at Robin again and said, you are right, the Revolutionary Army may not intend to destroy the world government. Robin's eyes lit up and he looked at Orgrim and said, Orgrim, you must know something, right? But Lord Hammer, Boss Kaido almost died there. If my Hawk and Sphinx hadn't been supporting him, he might not have been able to get out of Cake Island, Plank said again. Orgrim was stunned this time. What the hell? Kaido, who is interested in suicide and wants to die all day long, almost died on Cake Island? So he's not dead? Orgrim asked. No, Plank responded quickly. I don't know if it's an illusion, but why does Gangplank feel that Master Hammer seems a little regretful? It must be an illusion, right? After all, no matter what, Kaido is Yamato's biological father, and he and Lord Tsumugi are related by in-laws. I must have heard wrong. This is really, Orgrim smacked his lips, feeling a little regretful. If Kaido died, wouldn't there be no one to bother him? It shouldn't, how could I think so? I'm so sorry, Boss Kaido. You should take this as a warning in the future. But soon, Orgrim became happy again and asked, but that guy was seriously injured, wasn't he? Yes, he almost died after all, Plank said. That's good, Orgrim said happily. Plank. Didn't I hear it wrong just now? In this way, that bastard will have to recuperate at home in a short period of time, and the probability of annoying me will be reduced a lot, okay? Orgrim said very seriously. Well, I heard from my Hawk that Boss Kaido might have been ready to face death at that time, but he yelled your name, Lord Hammer, and then came back to life. Gangplank thought for a while and finally said it. Orgrim. Are you sick, Kaido? Can you just die? Why can you come back to life just by calling my name? Are you cheating? Not interested in hearing such terrible news, the ruthless scumbag Orgrim directly changed the subject and said, ahem, after Boss Kaido was defeated, the red-haired guy did you fall out with that dead old woman? That's right. Plank said without hesitation. Without my reminder, Charlotte Lingling might have been miserable. Now, she must be somewhat prepared. Gee ha 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 ha, I really don't know what will happen there in the end, but the results will come out soon, Plank. Once the results come out, Whitebeard will definitely realize that the focus of the war should shift to the war between us and them. He will have no chance to seize the initiative. I will not leave him a chance at all. By then, he will no longer be able to hide his whereabouts. You should keep an eye on Newgate and notify me immediately if you find Newgate, Orgrim said with a slightly serious tone. Yes, Mr. Chui, are you about to take action? Plank asked. Of course, no matter Shanks or that dead old woman, no matter who loses or wins, their vitality will be severely damaged. As long as I defeat Newgate, seize the last opportunity and consolidate our advantages and power in the new world, from now on, maybe everyone can still be the four emperors, but I am definitely the strongest and the one with the most say, Orgrim said with an evil smile. After a slight pause, he continued, of course, it also depends on whether they will continue to do the work of the four emperors, in other words, when the time comes, The four emperors may not be able to accommodate our Warhammer pirates. Gangplank was also a little excited. He responded quickly and hung up the phone. Orgrim looked at Robin again and asked, "Sorry, I didn't hear you clearly just now." "What did you say?" Robin didn't care about anything, and quickly asked again, "From what you said just now, it seems that you know something, the purpose of the Revolutionary Army." "Ah, in the beginning, that guy Durag must have been ambitious and wanted to completely destroy the world government system, but now, people, you always have to compromise with reality. Let me ask you, do you think it is really possible for him to destroy the world government system? Break the system of franchise countries?" Orgrim asked with a smile. Robin thought carefully, then shook his head and said it shouldn't be possible. For 800 years, this system has been very stable. More importantly, although it is very dark, it is very degenerate, but in fact, this system is still very advanced. It is just because there are celestial dragons at the top, various nobles at the middle level, and officials of the world government at the bottom who are constantly degenerating and corrupting, which ultimately led to this situation. Yes, this system cannot be overthrown. No one in the world will agree with it, because the system does still maintain a certain degree of advancedness and can effectively maintain world peace and mediate conflicts and interest disputes between countries. Dalag should have realized this in his many years of practice. Therefore, now, he may just want to eliminate those Tianlong people, nobles, and degenerate world government officials you mentioned, and complete the whole process. It's just a regulatory system. This should be the change and system he wants. Orgrim shrugged. Overthrowing the existing alliance system of the world government? Are you kidding? Even Orgrim can't do it, but Durag's revolutionary army can do it? No, no one should be able to do this. No one can do what he has done, at least at this stage. No one will be able to do it in the future or even in hundreds of years. I see, Robin murmured softly. After a slight pause, she asked in surprise, looking at it this way, Durag's goal is much smaller, but it is still possible to achieve it, right? Gee, ha 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 ha, impossible. Orgrim laughed and denied. Why? Robin asked in confusion. If it doesn't go against the real general trend, is it possible for the Revolutionary Army to succeed? Because the 5 old stars are not idiots, those fallen forces are actually very powerful. They are fallen, but they control most of the resources of the world government. The Revolutionary Army is not that easy to defeat them. The most important thing is, when Orgrim said this, he smiled evilly. Robin asked with some confusion, what is the most important point? Because of, the ideal world that Durag wants to create is not in the interests of our pirates, Robin. Therefore, on this matter, the world government and I are wearing the same pants. Now, let the Revolutionary Army make a fuss first. Well, just like the world government will use the Navy to contain me, I am also using the Revolutionary Army to contain the world government. But once the Revolutionary Army gets bigger, I will still join forces with the world government to kill them and keep them forever. Under certain degree of control, until, Orgrim said this and said no more. Perhaps, he will seize pure gold and consider the kind of controllable eternal life that can be achieved by taking off the ring. But, after all, there is no 1,000-year dynasty. No matter how far the Warhammer pirates will go in the future, Orgrim probably won't care at that time, right? As the saying goes, after I die, I won't care about the flood. When the time comes, Orgrim may let go completely, or he may seek a dignified death. As for this world, it has nothing to do with him. Whatever love is will do. Let him feel happy first before talking. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 580. I thought I would be better today, but it seems that I am getting worse. The pain in my head is unbearable, and I can't get out of bed. Seeing the concern of everyone in the comment area, I finally got up and coded a chapter. I'm really sorry, I can only do one update today. I will try to return to normal 5 updates tomorrow. On Cake Island, the power led by Shanks is obviously more powerful than the power possessed by Charlotte Lingling. Although Charlotte Lingling was not defeated by Shanks and Katakuri. But after all, the foreign ministers can't compare with Katakuri's younger brothers and sisters, especially Smoothie and Cracker, who are the generals after all. The strength is far beyond what Pokemus and Baron Eggman can match. Judging from the situation, once Smoothie and Cracker lead some of the younger brothers and sisters who support Katakuri to wipe out the power of the foreign ministers, Charlotte Lingling will face greater pressure. Perhaps, defeat is her end. Big Mom, your road has come to an end, Shanks panted and said, looking at Charlotte Lingling. There was expectation and excitement in his eyes, as if victory was about to happen. But Charlotte Lingling's expression, although gloomy, was not seem desperate. Don't be too proud, you despicable traitor, Charlotte Lingling mocked. At this moment, Pero suddenly took out a flare gun from his arms and fired it into the air. A firework exploded directly in the sky. Katakuri and Shanks' expressions changed, and they were a little confused, wondering what they were up to. Ha ha ha, now that we all know that Katakuri, you and Shanks are planning to start this rebellion, how could we not make preparations, Pero said with a sneer. Katakuri's eyes were fixed on Pero, while Shanks had a gloomy look on his face, not sure what these people were going to do. Do you want to get Cake Island? Charlotte Lingling had an evil smile on her face, and some saliva even flowed from the corner of her mouth. It seemed that her condition was also very unstable. She might have an attack of narcosis at any time. This island has no value or meaning. If you want it, I will give it to you as a burial place for you despicable traitors, Charlotte Lingling roared somewhat crazily. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned to look at Pero and said, do it? Pero nodded towards Charlotte Lingling, then reached out and pressed it on the ground. The next second, the ground where Charlotte Lingling's camp was located began to tremble, and then, a huge candy house emerged from the ground. As Pero exerted his power, the candy house quickly decomposed, revealing the cargo inside. It was a gas mask. There was also a special gas mask inside, which was very large. Charlotte Lingling picked up the gas mask specially prepared for her and put it on her head. Pero, Pock Musk, Baron Eggman and other members of the Foreign Affairs Department also picked up the gas mask. He put on his gas mask. At the same time, Katakuri seemed to have foreseen something with his powerful knowledge and haki, and his expression changed. You guys. But he hadn't even finished speaking. The roar of explosions began to come from all directions on Cake Island. Then, black and purple poisonous gas, like mist, covered the island from all directions. This is, Shanks said with a shocked and angry expression on his face. Do you like the funeral I prepared for you? After Charlotte Lingling put on the mask, she laughed and asked. Despicable, you used poison. Shanks looked at the poisonous gas gradually spreading over and cursed angrily. Ha 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 ha, idiots, you are already so despicable as to betray me, why should I be polite to you? Use poison? I can use any means, Charlotte Lingling laughed and said. CX-0. Neurotoxins are worth tens of thousands of dollars. They will stimulate your thinking. Unlike ordinary toxins, they will not make you feel painful, but will make you fall into an extremely excited state, produce hallucinations and drift away. Ecstasy, and finally die in happiness, Pero said in a deep voice. Listening to Pero's words, Katakuri's eyes were a little gloomy, and he said in a deep voice, this is Avalon stuff. That's right, it's from Avalon. You don't know how much effort I put into getting these things, Pero sneered. CX-0, in fact, it is the concentrated version of the rich woman's happy medicine back then. This thing has been divided into several versions. It has no side effects and has been sold as a bestseller in the dark world. Now it has become a necessity for the noble class. As a noble, if you hold a ball or something, if you don't do something like this and share it with your guests, no one will come. And they will say that you are of low quality. Then, there was another kind with side effects, which Doflamingo managed to sell to Marijoya and became a luxury product for the celestial dragons. In recent years, it is rare to hear of celestial dragons coming out to harm civilians. This medicine may also be responsible for this. Because there are many Tianlong people who lie in their houses all day long, taking drugs and cultivating immortality. The 5 old stars are naturally aware of this situation, but they will never touch such a thing themselves. However, the 5 old stars strangely maintained a tacit attitude towards their fellow Dracos. Finally, this is the neurotoxin used by Pero. CX-0, condensed version. This was the result of Caesar, a great dark scientist, who had devoted himself to research for many years. The concentrated rich woman's happy medicine will make you feel great pleasure the moment you are intoxicated. The other ingredients will quickly paralyze your body. Eventually, the poisoned person will continue to inhale the rich woman's happy drug without being able to move. The high concentration of the drug will continue to stimulate the nerves and brain, eventually reaching a state of the phenomenon of happy death. You colluded with Orgrim? Katakuri asked with anger in his eyes. No, we didn't do that, Pero retorted without hesitation. Before Katakuri could speak, Pero said in a deep voice, brother, as an elder brother, I will give you one last chance. Just admit defeat. As long as you admit defeat. As long as you surrender, I can forget everything. Katakuri's eyes changed slightly, as if he had realized something. Charlotte Lingling didn't think much about it. At this time, her sciarca seemed to be on the verge of breaking out. Most of her willpower was used to suppress sciarca. Not wanting to talk too much, Charlotte Lingling used her feet to attack Shanks at an extremely fast speed. Shanks also had a ruthless look on his face, raised his hand and slashed at Charlotte Lingling. The Emperor's sword, broken blade, Charlotte Lingling roared angrily, and slashed out with the Emperor's sword in her hand. Shanks Griffin suddenly blocked Charlotte Lingling's slashing attack, and the ground beneath her feet shattered directly, with strong oppression. Power is constantly coming from the blade. In terms of strength comparison, he is not Charlotte Lingling's opponent at all. Hateful, Shanks cursed secretly. The moment he finished speaking, his whole body was directly chopped away by Charlotte Lingling. Just as he was about to be slashed into the poisonous gas, a powerful aura erupted from Shanks' body. Overlord and domineering. When Shanks and Beckman fought, they also faced fierce poison. But he never expected that he would encounter something like this on Cake Island. He vowed to carry a gas mask with him no matter where he went from now on. What happened to this world? How did he become so despicable and sinister? Do you all like to play dirty? However, fortunately, he had some experience accumulated when he fought against Beckman, which allowed him to know that the impact air waves caused by using Overlord color haki can effectively dispel the poisonous gas. Sure enough, the explosion of Overlord colored domineering energy dispelled all the purple poisonous gas there before he fell into the poisonous mist. His feet suddenly landed on the ground, and he took a few steps back, stepping on a few broken flowers. Shanks took a deep breath, calmed down, and laughed, ha 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 ha, that's all. Overlord color is what I'm best at. Is this your last resort? Katakuri looked at Shanks strangely, feeling a little confused. Pero said with a smile, doesn't it feel pleasant? Of course, you can, Shanks said a little arrogantly. But before he finished speaking, his expression changed. No, although I am indeed very arrogant, I am not so hysterical. Not so excited. This is, Shanks' expression suddenly changed, he covered his nose and said. If it will be easily dispersed by the violent airflow, then you are too underestimated CX-0. The purple poisonous gas is just a confusing camouflage color. The real toxin is present at the moment it comes into contact with the air. Will be completely integrated into it. With the amount we use, it will take at least 4 days to be naturally diluted to a level that is harmless to the body. You, already poisoned, redhead, Shanks Perro grinned under his gas mask and said with an excited smile. He is finally going to win. Die. Charlotte Lingling also became excited and slashed out again. Shanks was indeed panicked. Not only was he panicked, he was also very angry. But underneath the anger, there was a smile that made him unable to help himself. Laughing. This is the poison of CX-0. Obviously, we have reached this point. Why is this happening? Boom. There was a clanging sound of metal colliding. Shanks was chopped out by Charlotte Lingling again. Katakuri's expression turned grim at this moment, and he said in a deep voice, maybe you really won, brother, but I will never admit defeat. As soon as he finished speaking, Katakuri held the trident and attacked again. Charlotte Lingling. After being entangled for a while, Charlotte Lingling failed to pursue Shanks. After Shanks landed, he couldn't help but want to laugh again. There was already some confusion in his mind. Evacuate, Shanks suppressed his laughter and roared. However, at this moment, there was a trace of flying sand flowing on the ground under Shanks' feet. But he didn't notice this strange phenomenon at the first time. By the time you are alert, it seems that it is already too late. This is, Shanks' expression suddenly changed, and he exerted force on his feet, as if he wanted to leave the area. But the next moment, a streak of yellow sand crossed Shanks' figure at an extremely fast speed. There was a flash of blood, and Shanks couldn't help but cry out in pain, and quickly distanced himself. Hum ha 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 ha. A burst of unruly laughter came from the yellow sand. Shanks' expression was very gloomy and strange at this time. There was a gloomy look between his brows, but the corners of his mouth could not help but rise. Looking at his condition, the injury was very serious. The entire left arm was severed from the shoulder by the yellow sand just now. That arm fell to the ground where he was just now. The laughter gradually died down, and at the same time, Crocodile's figure walked out from the yellow sand. He bent down and picked up Shanks' broken arm that fell to the ground, with an unruly smile on his lips. Meaning? Crocodile, there was shock and anger in Shanks' eyes, but more of it was disbelief. Ha 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 ha, are you surprised? Crocodile still smiled evilly and arrogantly. At the same time, the corrosive power of the rustling fruit in his hand was activated, and in just a moment, Shanks' severed arm was turned into decaying flying dust. So far, Shanks is missing one hand, and is no different from Crocodile. With hatred in his eyes, Shanks said in a deep voice, you have joined forces with Charlotte Lingling? Crocodile chewed a cigar in his mouth, exhaled a puff of smoke and said, don't get me wrong, Big Mom is not qualified to join forces with me. The matter is very simple, just like Katakuri chose you, Perisploto, you chose me, that's all. You, Shanks' eyes were filled with surprise and disbelief.